everybody. Welcome to Hacking HR's live October series, Understanding Workforce Sentiment, Leveraging AI for Strategic Workforce Insights. I'm Danielle LePage, and I'm Hacking HR's Chief Learning Officer, and I'll be your moderator for today. Jessa, would you kindly bring the panelists to stage? Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great this morning. Nice to see all your smiling faces. I think it's best if we go around and provide an introduction to everybody watching today, a little bit about what you do and why you're here today, why you love this topic so much. Do we want to start with you, Lucy?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Lucy Georgiadis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Elevate Leadership. We do a lot of one-on-one coaching, a lot of live training, and we also have a lot of short classes on all these kind of management topics. So we help our clients a lot with this kind of topic. Everyone is trying to incorporate better AI practices to really understand the sentiment of their workforce and just have a kind of richer data to use to inform their HR initiatives. And so it's conversations that we have with our clients a lot. So it is definitely a topic that is very relevant at the moment and that we're talking about all the time. And so I'm excited to dig in.
Wonderful. We're happy to have you here. And Alvin.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from Singapore. It's 10 p.m. here, so hopefully my son doesn't burst in. He's supposed to be in bed at the moment. I'm a specialist in building employer value propositions. I've done so globally for companies like Lenovo, GSK, Prudential, Rakuten, others. Before I actually founded my own consultancy, Good People Consulting, based in Singapore. It focuses on talent attraction, TA enablement, talent COE projects. I was actually the global talent attraction lead at Dyson, so I was taking care of TA optimization and attraction for 14,000 people, a very exciting tech company. And I was also a talent insight specialist, former head of activation solutions at a company called Universum, which you may know for its rankings of many different companies, serving more than 1.5 million people globally every year. So AI is definitely a huge topic close to my heart. So looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful to have you here, Alvin. Thank you. And Rishi?
Hi, am I audible? Good. Analytics has been an area which I have been working for the last couple of years. And people analytics, as it really boomed in a big way, it has been super important to understand what our employees feeling. And I have worked quite a lot to really understand employee sentiments, which might be on the social network, internal communities, and also the real-time analytics. So this topic is quite important, and I have also seen, now I have moved from people analytics to business, and I have seen that understanding employees and employee sentiment on different decisions companies take is super important, and HR should be having a know-how of what this sentiment really means and how they should be using it. So this topic is quite close to my heart.
Well, we're very happy to have you here, Rishi. Thank you very much. And Sudhir?
Hi, my name is Sudhir Singh. I'm joining in from San Francisco. Super excited to be here today. I am the CEO for ProOrgs and the president for National Human Resources Association for Silicon Valley. This topic is very relevant and exciting for me from two perspectives. One is being a 20-year HR professional, employee engagement is something that has been a big, complex thing that we always work on, and it's always kind of evading us, and we are trying to get close to it, and it gets further away because of a lot of things that keep happening. So that itself is such a big, complex thing to look at. And I'm also an engineer, which is always like, it makes me look at new technologies and how we can leverage it to do things better. And AI certainly has come up so strongly and is impacting everything. And how can it not impact human resources? So There is a lot of leverage here. There is a lot that we can do, provided we really make AI our friend and really understand it and how we can leverage it. So I am looking at this topic from both these angles.
Well, welcome. Thank you for coming out today, Sudhir. Thanks to everybody. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to move through some questions I have for each of you, and then I have some more general questions. So if that's cool with you, we're going to get kicked off here. So Sudhir, while I have you here, with your extensive experience in HR leadership, how do you see AI being used to accurately gauge workforce sentiment, and what are the most critical indicators HR leaders should focus on?
That's a great question, and so let's first look at the issues that we have faced when AI was not there. So that would possibly help us understand how AI could be leveraged, right? So one big challenge when it comes to measuring employee engagement and understanding the workforce sentiment is the sheer vastness, complexity, and amorphicity of the data. So there is a lot of data that comes in which is anecdotal at times. It could be in form of commentary, it could be in form of input from group discussions, and so on. So not every time the data is quantitative and easy to analyze. So that is one challenge that the HR professionals always face, like how to analyze all this anecdotal data that is coming in, all this qualitative data that is coming in, and build a business case around it. So AI could really help HR professionals in doing that. Converting the anecdotal and qualitative data into some kind of quantitative analysis is one big use case. The other is about the human biases. Like, we tend to ignore things that we don't want to listen, right? And when we are even as HR professionals, like, we have our own blind spots and we have our own biases. And when we are going through all that qualitative information, our mind automatically weeds out all that information that we just don't want to see out there. So even if we think and assume that we are very objective in our analysis, we are not, right? So AI could really help us weed out all that bias, while AI also has bias, because at the end of it is built by human beings, but then it is not a bias that we hold as HR professionals in a certain organization, right? So even if the biases are there, they are more generic in nature. So these are two immediate use cases that I see. There are a lot of things that might happen in the future, but I will hold my horses here and maybe come back to it when we discuss about the future.
Does anyone want to jump in and add any thoughts to what Sudhir brought to the table? All right, we're going to move on. Lucy, as someone focused on organizational performance, how have you seen AI-driven insights translate into actionable HR strategies that directly impact employee engagement?
Yes, well, firstly, just to jump in what Sudhir said, the main thing we see is HR, exactly as he mentioned, using it to be able to make sense of all of this anecdotal qualitative data. And as we know, a lot of the devil's in the detail. That's the stuff that really has the kind of content that helps us understand workforce sentiment and understand really what people are struggling with. Because often your sort of workforce sentiment, like how people are feeling about their jobs and their careers, comes from these little throwaway comments, these small things that they've popped into their surveys or their engagement surveys or whatever it is that you're surveying them for. And so we have one client. I'll tell you about this one client in particular that we're working with, which, to give you like an actual example of how we're really using these things. And we did a 360 analysis for them. Now we had coaches across maybe 30 or 40, I think, of their leaders, from directors upwards. And we did a 360 for all of them, where we actually had our coaches interview for 30 minutes people. So there was huge amounts of this qualitative data about exactly how every single one of their senior leaders was doing, how they were being perceived, all of that kind of stuff. And actually AI-driven insights translated very directly into how we help the HR team think very differently and more strategic. They have a very strategic HR team, to be fair. They're an amazing HR team. But it really helped that data. When we passed it through AI, we got them to analyze all of that 360s, looking at cutting that data by gender, by tenure, by organization, by level. And when we cut the data in that different way, and we looked at what are the different strengths that this population of folks have, what are things that they're really struggling with, what are they self-reporting on things that they're really struggling with, then we could create this really custom manager training program for them and leader training program for them. And it really changed how we thought about what they needed and how we were going to deliver that to them. And hopefully we'll see the results that will come through, that's going to impact employee engagement very much, because it's so tailored to what that population really needed.
Great, thank you, Lucy. Does anyone have any thoughts on what Lucy said?
Yeah, let me just quickly jump in here. So, other important challenge that organizations face, and particularly HR, is in terms of prioritizing a lot of insights and actions that come out of our analysis and so on. So another use case that I am seeing, which will directly impact the performance for the organization as well for the people, is our enhanced ability to prioritize some of those things. So again, like it's to do with a lot of data and a lot of biases. I'm coming back to that again and again, and AI really helps us with a lot of that stuff. So for example, when we have all that data in and we have discussed it through and we have some insights and actions, now next thing that comes in for prioritization is the effort impact analysis, right? To really look at how would we want to prioritize these actions. And I have seen in my own experience, there is a lot of vested interest that comes into play. Each function is trying to some extent, avoid and shun responsibility and not be in the limelight. And because of that, sometimes the effort or the impact is not really looked at in a very objective manner, right? So now what AI could do is to really assess the net effort and net impact based on all the information that it has from various parts of the organization, all the data that it has over a period of time and so on, and give a very accurate analysis in terms of what are the actions that are going to be most meaningful and impactful, and make sure that they really are also implemented through a very detailed action plan, which again AI could help with.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I would like to further add over here. So a lot of times organizations would have data which is more for their own organization, or it might be from internet about the organization. For example, people might come or employees who have left the organization, they can come back and write on Glassdoor or LinkedIn or a lot of other places about the company. How is the company? What is the culture? What is the collaboration? How the learning opportunities exist, and a lot of other things. With AI, we can really see these trends over time. That what were the people saying 5 years back about the company? What were their pain areas? And what are they saying today? And they can talk about these things about one company whom we are interested in, but they can also talk about the industry and also about the competitors. So using AI, we can really see how the things are working for the company. For example, we might have a new employer value proposition which would have come in the company. You really want to understand whether it is working or not. So with AI, or you might have new goals which has been set, strategic goals which have been set, uh, HR goals which are tied with the organizational strategic goals. That company has a skills-based organization needs to be built. So what do people really feel about skills? Is it working or not? So getting all these insights using AI and different points in time, collecting the data and understanding these themes using natural language processing can really benefit the organization and understand whether the interventions are working or not, or where they need to be further tailored in.
Thank you, Rishi. Alvin, as an expert in digital transformation, how do you recommend organizations ensure continuous improvement in employee sentiment through AI-based tools?
Yeah, so great question. I think I come from a pretty unique kind of perspective as well, having not just worked in HRIS systems, HRIS systems, sorry, and not just looking at ATS systems, the applicant tracking systems, and things like that, or even assessment platforms and tools. But I actually started my career in Oracle NetSuite. I think back then it was not Oracle NetSuite, it was just NetSuite, right? So ERP software and deployment. And the one thing that I carried over from the early days was digital transformation in whatever shape or form is not a miracle pill, right? And we've heard this so often, right? That I think it's the culture that we're driving internally in the company that ensures adoption, successful change management, and I think when I was racking my brain to think about what AI in today's context, especially Gen AI, right, helps you to do, right? And I thought there were four things in general. The first thing was to help you start, right? It's about overcoming inertia at proof of concept stage, right? And anyone could, with a reasonably written prompt, get started on an employee listening project, or a sentiment analysis kind of piece, right? More on that later. The second thing it helps you do, so start. Second thing it helps you do is to scale. I think you become very nimble, very quick, almost entrepreneurial, right? Very entrepreneurial, I think, and still very comprehensive. So you can still process large amounts of data, and you can get started there on your own with your computer, with access to a Gen AI tool. And I think that's not something that we've really seen before. Like, I think you can compare it basically to, back in the day where before you start your car, right? I remember when I was learning driving, I had to open a street directory, and I don't think people these days, when they get the license, I don't think they know what that is, right? And I think that's the kind of game changer that's being brought into play. But then the third S to me, on top of scalability, I think is sustainability. You can actually keep feeding a large language model data, and you can continue to design and iterate while in deployment. You've deployed your survey, but at the same time, you're still feeding, right? And I think that's something quite wonderful about that, right? And the last thing is actually support. And this is kind of like, duh, right? It's pretty obvious. It takes away menial transactional tasks, or it helps to actually augment these tasks in a professional looking and sounding way that actually, by and large fulfills requirements. So in some of the use cases that I looked at, I won't name the companies. We've done things like sentiment analysis, or employee sentiment analysis, and you can prompt AI, to get summaries for you and things like that. And you can double check the work. It is pretty all right. Some aha moments that I'll share later, I think, down the line. But we used it as well to expose leadership capability gaps. So having frameworks, in the backend, like looking at, for example, very common talent kind of or leadership development model, the leading self, leading others, or teams, leading the business framework. We use that to actually design surveys in Microsoft Forms, even, as proof of concept, before the organization had a buy-in to invest in a proper, insights platform. That's what Gen AI could actually help us do. It helped us to start. It helped us to scale, right? And it also helped us to sustain support. And I think the fifth one I didn't mention earlier really was sell, because now you've got a proof of concept. You can now sell that concept internally, for the business to see the value in that. So I think we successfully created things like talent personas, and I think we trialed out things like AI recruitment tools, talent management software, things like that, internal talent marketplaces, jobs matching, skills matching. And I think it all still comes down to these four things, right? Start, scale, sustain, support, and maybe I missed this one out, but I think sell as well. I think he's a much better salesman than ourselves, especially when you tap into it and you realize the power of it, generative AI.
Yeah, I would quickly jump in here to support your last point, Alvin. Like selling internally is so important. Like once we have done all the job, and sometimes like when it came to difficult messaging to the leadership or to the organization, it was always a challenge for the HR team, right? Because it's not easy to give those difficult messages, right? And sometimes the bigger organization even hired external consultants to come in and do that job. They would come in and they would essentially tell the leadership or the executives what's wrong with them, right?
I call it PR for HR. That, like HR for HR, but PR for HR.
Absolutely. So I think, that's another good point you brought up. Gen AI could certainly be that voice, and coming from coming not from the HR team directly, but from a tool or from a process, makes it so much more credible. So that is a good use case there. And before we move further, I just wanted to take a minute to welcome all the people who have joined this panel discussion from various parts of the world. So I am seeing people from Canada and US, of course, and then there are people from Africa, from Asia, from all over the world. And if you have not already said hello in the chat, please go ahead and say that and tell us where you join us from.
Rishi, with your focus on analytics and business performance, how do AI-focused insights around workforce sentiment link to broader business outcomes and success?
Very nice. So I will give you an example of how important it is. So, for example, we are a number 2 company, a cement manufacturing company in India, where we have a large market share. And we have sites across India, more than 40-50 sites, which hundreds of employees really. When I say employees, and then we also have contract workforce, which will be working on these sites. And it is really very difficult to really understand what is happening on those sites. The organization goals would be more for top line and bottom line for most of the organizations. But between top line and bottom line, how do we really achieve this? So one is traditionally we have seen that whatever is company's strategy, that will boil down into HR actions around talent acquisition, talent management, retention, and different things. But these are more strategies which are at the top level. But whether they are really working or not, we need to get to the grassroots level. So AI really comes into play where we can really understand the employee sentiment at the grassroots level. It might be we might have a machine. I can probably give a couple of examples. How do you collect data? Because without data, AI is difficult to happen. You can have on your, once the person logs in, the first thing on the laptop, how are you happy or sad? A simple 2 box or a 3 box. Whenever people are going for lunch or in the offices or they're entering offices, or if you have a facial recognition, it can easily tell whether the employees are happy or sad. While the people have intranet portals or they are giving feedback to each and everyone, it might be as part of their performance cycles, as part of their talent cycles. We bring in all this data at a single place. But this is all company data. But even the employees who are leaving, we can have their data. But moreover, this is all HR we have been talking about. But as customers, as our vendors, they would also be talking to us, might be on chat, interacting with our customer care call center, or they will be writing their queries and lot of emails, grievance emails. So we can get all that call center data, get all that sentiment data from our customers, from our vendors, and see how happy they are or how sad they are. We have clearly seen that happy customers, happy vendors leads to better business performance. It's no science or a revealing thing that this happens, but eventually it happens. It all boils down to how much data we can integrate in a single place and how we can really use it. Uh, so, for example, you might have a new contract in place which you're applying for all the vendors. Are vendors really happy about it or they're sad about it? Uh, you can just have a simple meeting or where all the vendors come and you explain that document to them. And depending upon what they are saying, we can easily understand that what is the sentiment without really getting into the nuances, whether everything is happening in the right way or not. So AI becomes more like a magic wand to HR organization where they can see if everybody is happy, if everything is happening right. In case something is not happening right, they can get clues or they can get heat maps that something is not correct at this location or this location or with this vendor or with this product. So it eventually helps them to bridge the gap and understand what is happening. So eventually, how I see HR is working much closely with the business and can understand all these things on the fly with the AI coming to rescue.
That's great. Thank you, Rishi. Any thoughts to add?
But yeah, Rishi made a very important point that at the end of it's all about data, So AI is totally helpless and hapless if it doesn't have enough data to operate from. So great point. And I think HR needs to really improve its data friendliness. So it has been improving over a period of time, but it's not just about collection of data, but also like looking at the business context, what data is important from that perspective, looking into the future, like what data we should be collecting now for us to get the right kind of insights in the future, and so on. So there is a lot of stuff around data analytics and data science. I'm not saying that HR people need to become data scientists now, but like we need to understand data a little more than just the basic Excel and PowerPoint and so on. So we have to go a little beyond that. The other thing, like since we have already started talking about the future a bit, so far we are just looking at Gen AI, which is great and which itself is such a huge leap in terms of where we were and where we are and where we could be in short period of time. But we are still looking at data, some foundational models, some LLM, and so on, which is part of Gen AI. The next big thing which we really need to look into and which will really change the canvas completely is something called the agentic AI, and that is something that is going to change this game completely. And just to give a quick view into what it is for the uninitiated people who already know it, great. Sorry for boring you. But if you don't know, agentic AI is going to be something like, creating agents in the AI space who could do all the work for you, the tasks for you, and so on. So, for example, if you have to do any task today, let's say you have to order something from, let's say, one of the online grocery stores. So there are n number of steps that you have to follow. Going forward, you could just create an agent and ask the agent to do all that for you. In the future, agents could create their own agents. They could hire other agents. They could even destroy themselves and end or kill other agents. So it is predicted that very soon, once the agentic AI starts happening, there could be more agents than the number of human beings in this world, right? Doing all that we think of doing as of now, not even the routine tasks, but even some, creative tasks as well. So I invite you to know more about agentic AI, but let me talk about the application. So far, we are looking at the data from the past, the trends, and analysis and insights based on that. Now, with AI, with both Gen AI and agentic AI, what will happen and what we need to prepare ourselves for is looking at all that information in the real time, as Rishi said, the heat maps and all. Now, it is still dependent on the human beings to have an eye on that. And if something is changing, then we take an action, or we, do something using Gen AI to further look at that. Going forward, the agents could be actually keeping an eye on all that. So let's say there is there's an agent which is keeping an eye on productivity in the organization, and let's say in a certain department the productivity is dipping, and it's still not manifesting itself in any kind of exits or any kind of drastic impact that is felt by the team members, but the productivity is kind of on the low. The AI could actually launch pulse surveys based on that, could get in touch with the employees to understand what's happening, and come back to you with information about what's happening out there and what you could be doing. So what I'm trying to say here is, for HR folks, it's important to understand AI, the various aspects of it as of now, what's coming through the pipe, and start looking at how we can really leverage it to really get deep understanding about workforce sentiment, not just from the past and the present, but also what is coming through the pipe.
Alvin, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I know hacking HR hours are usually, they really go really quickly. So I'll just try to be brief about this one. Yeah, I think Sudhir has really hit it on the head, in terms of, okay, we're only just at the tip of the iceberg at the moment. I think one good framework that I can sort of reference as well is the 3 different types of AI that we are actually seeing at the moment in terms of stages of AI. The first would be things like, it's called ANI, AGI, and ASI. I'm sure some of you will start nodding to that, right? So what we know about ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence, that's actually AI systems that are designed to perform a specific task. So remember how, all your frustrations of Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, okay, I hope I did not just trigger mine. I think things like image recognition software, chess engines, like when we were back in the day, we were so excited over, like chess computers beating grandmasters and vice versa, and you have a very narrow focus there. It's limited domain expertise. There's no self-awareness as well. We are in the sort of the transitional phase of what you call AGI at the moment, which is artificial general intelligence. So that is where we start to see things like GPT, right? It's got human-like intelligence, got ability to perform any sort of intellectual task. If any of you were following Tesla stock, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, you realize that with Elon Musk was talking a lot about humanoids type robots, and they were serving drinks, and there was a little bit of a controversy there as well. I think if you do a bit of the reading, you understand why and what. And that's where we are looking at things like intelligent personal assistants, human-like robots, autonomous systems, that are quite capable of pretty complex decision making. So that's next level up from Siri and Google Home and things like that, right? And then we're moving into, and Sudhir was kind of hinting at this earlier, into something called ASI, which is artificial super intelligence. We're not going to see this yet. It's going to be a long time. But we know that there are limitations to the AI we're using today. So For example, I think I mentioned an aha moment that I'll talk about down the line. When I was using GPT language model to try to conduct sentiment analysis, we realized that it just doesn't count. It doesn't count well, and you realize that when you're trying to tabulate data and things like that, it just doesn't do it well. It counts wrong. The numbers always come back, funny. And there's a lot of literature in that, like how, it actually sees the world, how it's actually seeing words, like it's, I'm not the expert here, but you can do a lot of reading about that and why, GPT doesn't count well, right? So that there are limitations, to those early model releases. And that is a very sort of, it grabs you, right? It makes you think, okay, this AI thing, can I fully trust it? But in the next level of ASI, which is artificial superintelligence, you'll be looking at AI systems that are significantly more intelligent than the best human minds, vastly superior intelligence. It's going to outperform us in many, many things. We've got some, I think some thought leaders in the space. Elon Musk even himself called it, it could be an existential risk. Stephen Hawking, I think, said something about it being potentially humanity's worst mistake. So, I mean, of course, there are different dimensions to look at, how technology could interface into our lives. And I'm a tech optimist, of course. But of course, being an HR practitioner as well, how does that fit, right? I think it brings a lot of concerns around ethics and governance and also the empathy question. Right now we're saying that the human part of the equation in AI is supplied by human beings. But when we get to an ASI level, which Sudhir was kind of hinting at as well, and not just that, like just pre-ASI level, you're looking at that agent sort of AI. How would that, sort of fit into our workforce, and how we manage our workforce? What would talent development, what would talent management, succession planning, and or even looking at employee listening, how would that then look? What is a safe space? When you're talking about creating safe spaces in organizations, what's diversity going to look like? What's inclusion and belonging and equity going to look like? I think that those are things that we'll be thinking about very, very soon, actually.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, Alvin, that ASI is not as distant as we might think. There is a lot of stuff that is happening. I've been attending a lot of conferences here in the Silicon Valley. You won't believe there are roughly around 200 conferences around AI every month in just San Francisco Bay Area. That is almost like 5 a day. And the kind of development that is happening, on one hand, it's scary, but on the other hand, it is also kind of showing us what the future might look like. And this is a great opportunity for HR professionals, because in the past, our challenge with technology was that we had to do anything, we had to also understand the behind the scenes of technology, right? Now with AI, we really don't need to bother about the behind the scenes, right? We could be at the front and also be behind the scenes using AI, right? I could actually, without having any knowledge about coding, can actually use AI to write a code, So, this is a great opportunity for us in HR to really start understanding the leverages that the technology can offer and start using that. So I would say, hey, don't think that it's too far out. Don't think it's distant. It is going to be here very soon. So just step out, be part of the AI world. Even if it's a tech conference, go out there, see what's happening, hear what people are doing, and start thinking in terms of how we can leverage some of those solutions to understand the workforce sentiment and deal with a lot of that amorphous anecdotal data that has been a big challenge for us in the past.
And I would say, just to add on to that it does matter how you prompt AI, and it matters, and sometimes it matters like which one you use. I'm personally slightly biased because we do a lot of work with Anthropic to use Claude. I think the Claude is fantastic for especially workforce sentiment things, and large sets of data, and Claude Pro is amazing too. But I would say that like it's I would totally agree that like it's just stepping out, joining some of those conferences where you can, joining them like virtually where you can is great. Also, if you don't know how to use the AI prompts very well, that it is really worth finding somebody who can teach you, and maybe finding that person that can come in and teach your whole HR team, or even bringing your managers together as well, because I think you can have a lot of great ideas and you can have an awful lot of data to pass, but if you don't know how to get that into the model well and how to prompt it correctly to get back that insightful data that you need, it's you're really missing a trick. And I think once you're trained in how to do that, the possibilities just start to map themselves out in your mind. You can really start to understand like, oh my goodness, well, if I can say this to it, I can take this piece of data, these exit interviews, these performance reviews, like all different types of things, and you can learn to parse and cut that data in really, really helpful ways.
Great point, Lucy. And thanks to all for a great combo. Any other thoughts before we move forward?
Just to add what Lucy has said, I think we started as an organization using Copilot. And once Copilot started coming in all our PPTs, all our Excel sheets, it's a wonderful thing. In 5 minutes, whatever topic you choose, you have a very insightful PPT, which might take a couple of hours to be made. The entire organization is using it just like that. And very nicely, Lucy said that training not only the HR professional, but also the business managers. I think it's become super important for everyone to start using these tools and really going on a wave of understanding these tools and how we use them and what all are the possibilities. It's more like a puzzle to be solved.
Yeah, I just want to add as well, Danielle, if that's okay. I think coming back with to what I said earlier, start, scale, sustain, support, and I think show or sell, right? The start thing, like just bringing it back to Lucy and Sudhir's comment, like I think to borrow a term by this wonderful leader, her name is Indra Nooyi, right? And she talked not specifically about Gen AI, but she talked about leadership, right? And she's always talking about leadership and what that looks like in the world today and going forward. And she'd like to say that, I think leadership, one of the things you want to be remembered for is a bit of a hip pocket skill, something you just pull out and you get remembered for that, and I think in the early days of ChatGPT's release, right, you would look like just a superstar, in the HR boards, right? Just simply, sort of running aha moments with it, and I think there's an even heightened sense now that I think that we're in a play space at the moment, right? It's experimentation and it's a problem statement playground out there. So why not just get started? And I think that's the beauty of Gen AI, I think in particular. I think because prompting is simply conversational in nature, like it can be very conversational in nature. So get started, right, and get stuck in, and I think that's where you start to open up those use cases, that you didn't sort of see before, as Lucy said. So yeah, I just wanted to contribute in that form, just borrowing off Indra Nooyi, that hip pocket skill, just take it out and, right now, why wait?
Yeah, and there's a question from one of the users regarding, is there a course or some training for prompts? And there are a lot of courses out there available online. So look for certification courses on prompt engineering, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, and a lot of other online platforms already have certification tools around prompt engineering. And as
hacking HR as well. Like I think there's one post as well that we've got on hacking HR.
Right,
like 2 series or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, as Lucy and Alvin already talked enough about it. I'm not going to say anything else, but as it said, the quality of your input is, it impacts the quality of output. So prompts are what matter, and at least the GPD models, they hallucinate a lot, and your prompt engineering could really help cut down on that hallucination if you have accurately pointed out what you're looking for.
Okay, great. Next question I have is, how can HR leaders balance AI data with feedback from employees to get a complete view of that macro view of workforce sentiment?
All right. So I think, the discussion so far has been more about the tools that are available and, how we could be using. I think it would be a good point to bring in the approach, and that is what I think this question takes us to. Like, we have the data, which we have been traditionally using, and then a lot of employee feedback and insights that we receive, and how do we really marry that? And that is what has been a challenge for us in the past, because as we talked earlier, that most of this data is qualitative. The quantitative data is not enough in any which way for us to help with determining the situation, or coming out with insights or likely solutions. For HR, the real value is in the anecdotal data, is in the commentary, and so on. And that is where AI is our biggest friend to really look at all the data. So a lot of tools like Culture Pro and Culture Amp, sorry. Culture Pro is our tool. Sorry for, it was not meant to be a shameless plug here. Culture Amp or Lattice, which has recently introduced the engagement module, and other organizations are doing it. They're already building an AI into the tool to do all that analysis for us. So the point is now, how do we go beyond that? So this is what the tool could do for us. Now, we as the HR professionals have a lot better understanding of our organization, of our people, of some of the things that are being discussed in the boardroom and so on. So we could essentially bring in all that context, right, and build it into our prompts so that we start getting more accurate information analysis and insights from the Gen AI tools that we are using, right? In absence of that context, in absence of all that information that only we as the HR team could provide, it is going to give us a lot of generic things, which again might be difficult to sell. And as Alvin keeps bringing that fourth S in, that is important, right? At the end of it, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. What we are able to eventually sell to our leadership and get the resources to implement the actions is going to matter, right? So that is the real value that we can really bring in, using all the data, Gen AI together, using the context that we have, and getting exactly what needs to be done and how it could be resourced.
I think, to jump in on that, when you have got all that good data and you have been prompting things well, and you've got to that point where you think you're like, okay, I've done the analysis. Maybe you've done it over a few different years. You've gone back and used old data and put that in through the AI to get the data that you need. If we're looking at Danielle's original question was, how do we pair that? I think I'm right in thinking, Danielle, how do we actually pair that with actual people who are going to be benefiting from some of this analysis? And I think it's very easy when you've done quite a big data analysis to think that you've ended with the answer. You're like, oh, fantastic. I've analyzed all this data and now I know what people need. but actually you're kind of only part the way there, because you have sometimes, in some cases, a very different workforce from what you had 5 years ago. And the way people like to learn has changed. And what actually engages people now from 5-10 years ago has also changed. And as we know, as HR folks, we're constantly having to adapt to that, which is part of the great beauty of the job. But what we found works quite well once you've got that data is for our clients to then just simply ask, okay, so here are the learnings. This is what we found. Here's the sentiment that we think we're seeing and hearing. Is that right? If it is right, what would be the way that you'd like us to address some of this stuff? Because AI is not going to fix that part for you. You do need to just ask your employees what they want and how they want it. And we've seen quite a big shift in the last 5 years of what we do, from wanting training in a traditional sense to wanting peer learning. And that looks quite different. If you take a bunch of AI insights and you want to help your workforce change and feel more connected together and learn a new skill, actually, it matters very much what they think. So I'd also say, to build onto what Sudhir has said, you then need to just ask your workforce, do focus groups, pick people who are real cultural ambassadors, put surveys out if you need to, pull in the executive team at this point. They may have a good idea as well. But I wouldn't start strategically changing what you're doing until you've done that next step of bringing in the human to ask.
That's great, Lucy. Thank you. Any more thoughts, Rishi?
There's a question in the chat which asks, how can smaller companies in emerging markets can start implementing AI for workforce insights? So adding it further, so trying to answer it along with what we have been discussing, it's about data. And all the data might be these focus groups, workforce insights, the discussion points. All these things needs to get into a database, on which we can have ChatGPT or OpenAI models can work on top of it. Previously, the way we have been traditionally creating dashboards and writing a lot of Python code to get the insights, get the answers, I think that development time becomes much easier with the OpenAI and ChatGPT. Or if we have any of the organizations, co-pilots or any other products, OpenAI products from various companies, they can just sit on the data, whatever we have, and can answer a lot of questions around workforce insights.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rishi, and thanks for catching that question. You have said what needed to be said as far as implementation in small companies. Like, of course, those companies don't have all the resources to invest in big AI tools for themselves. So using the generally available tools out there is a great idea. I would just put a word of caution out here that, when you are putting in your company data onto ChatGPT or any open code tools out there, you need to be very careful, because once you put in that data, how it gets processed and how it becomes part of the knowledge inventory for these tools, you have no control over that. So when you are putting any information regarding your company out there, regarding yourself out there, your employees out there, make sure that you have scrubbed it clean. It's totally anonymous. There are no specific, information about your company or employees. So remove your company name, remove any employee name, remove any specific data. You can put the numbers out there. That's fine, but make sure that it's totally anonymized and it's not easy for it to be linked to your company, to you, or to any employee in the organization. So that's a very important thing to do when you're using any open source tools out there.
Agreed. I think that's very important. So thanks for mentioning that, Sudhir. Any other thoughts on what Sudhir has provided to us today?
Yeah, just a quick one on that. So I think I have helped a few sort of smaller companies, small to medium-sized enterprises, less than 500 people in the workforce. I think to get started, with employee sentiment analysis, and I think even you'll be surprised, because even the large companies, you realize that I think it comes down to what Sudhir and myself were talking about earlier, around selling, showing, the value, and this is what I think the free tools at the moment can help you do. I think if you've got Office 365, you've got access to Microsoft Forms, you can get a quick survey done up, right? And Gen AI can actually help you to pick things like frameworks, that you can use, to ask those questions. And and coming from my talent insights background, I think particularly with Universum, I think one of the things you really want to watch out for is, I think in line with your employer value proposition, right? What are you offering as an employer? What are some of the main attraction drivers or the talent drivers, that you want your employees to experience in, and throughout the talent life cycle? What are some moments that matter, in that journey as well, and when you're looking from an employee experience perspective. So bearing in mind these design thinking principles, the magic trick here is there's no magic trick, right? There's no Gen AI is not going to help you, piece that together. But I think it helps you get started. So pick a framework. It could be Universum's 40 attraction drivers. It could be Gartner's drivers. It could be Willis Towers Watson's attraction drivers. It could be something that you come up with on your own as well. With workshops with your leaders, what's important in the workplace. It could be Barrett Value Center as well. You can lean into some of these frameworks and get something started going as a proof of concept. And what GPT will help you do is then to help you generate summaries, or to help you to, pull sentiment analysis from the raw data that you collect. And I think it comes back down to things like data integrity as well. Not to say that it's a little bit more carelessly handled in smaller companies, but I think it comes back down to what Sudhir said, around anonymizing the data, just making sure that you know what the pitfalls are as well, when you're using an LLM that's connected to the internet, and how that would play into your company's compliance and codes of conduct, when it comes to the handling of data. That's very, very important, I think, when you're starting a project like this.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Alvin. Anyone have any last thoughts before we wrap up? Just a couple of minutes left on the ticker.
Yeah, like I will say, based on all the comments that I'm seeing coming in from the participants from all over the world, and what we discussed here, like this is a great opportunity. And like everything that we do in HR comes from two sources, either from the business realities, what's happening on the business end, or the workforce sentiment. And understanding business realities were always easy because they were mostly delivered in form of data and numbers. And workforce sentiment was something which was the amorphous, gooey piece, which is very difficult to figure out. And this is really a wonderful opportunity to put some structures around it and think in terms of what Rishi said, what is the data that we should be looking at, not just from the past, but what could be the data which we were not able to in the past because of our own limitations. But now with all these tools available to us, we could actually model some of it, saying, okay, I would want to keep an eye out on all this data going forward. It could be productivity data, it could be engagement data, it could be some real-time data, which is anecdotal in nature from exit interviews and so on. And, start using some of that for getting, insights into what's happening and be more proactive about, analyzing that information, coming up with insights, and sharing it with, as Lucy said, and also Alvin talked about selling it to the executive team in a timely manner. Most of the time, the challenge with us was that by the time we had everything ready, the donkey was dead, So there was nothing much that could be done. But now we have this ability and edge to really do it in real time, do it fast, so that actions could be taken in real time. We could acquire those resources in the real time and be more effective.
That's great. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you today for contributing your thoughts. We really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to everybody that's joining us live from all over the world today. So we appreciate it. And thank you for joining our live event in the October series here at Hacking HR. And tomorrow we have another live event. It's called Mapping the Employee Journey, using AI to map and create moments that matter during the employee lifecycle. So we hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.